Hi, and welcome again to Eating Plebian. I want to thank you for joining with us again today. And we have shrimp and lowcountry grits. Now, this is one is a little near and dear to my heart. It is one of my favorite recipes to make. And unless you've actually lived in or visited kind of a strip of land somewhere in between, say, Savannah, Georgia, and Wilmington, North Carolina, it's safe to say you've probably never had it, unless you've had like an expat or something like that bestow it upon you. These grits are absolutely different from anything that you've ever had. At a restaurant or a diner or breakfast nook somewhere. They are just so qualitatively different that it probably blow your mind. Now, the reason for this is for two things. Number one, the cut of them, they're stone ground grits, which you can probably find a lot of places, but they're kind of special. And I don't even know what qualifies them to be called low country grits, but there's just something special about them. But the second thing is that the time and the care that it makes, the time and the care that it takes to create them is a little bit more than anything that you'll find a lot of restaurants willing to do, unless it's the sort of place that, like a restaurant in Charleston, South Carolina, they're willing to put the time and the care into these things, and the resulting product is magic. Let's get a start on what we need to make it. As it's called shrimp and grits, you can imagine that I've got grits, I've got shrimp. The grits that I mentioned, I'm not going to just go and say names or whatever. I don't Greek things out. I'm not required to yet, not at my level. But those are some fantastic grits that I picked up. They're a little more expensive, but they really are worth it, and they'll last a good long time. Over here, I have got tomatoes, I've got garlic, and I've got pancetta, which is kind of like a lovely Italian bacony sort of thing. I've got 3/4 of a cup of chicken broth, some more butter because some is going to be going into the rice. Excuse me, not rice. Going into the grits, and some more of it is going to be going into the gravy and shrimp concoction. I've got a little bit of flour. I've got half an onion, half a green pepper. We've got some spices, salt, pepper. We have a couple of containers of half and half and water, and they are, because they're in different size containers, they look different, but they're both about 2.5 cups of their respective liquids. And that's my iced tea. Don't worry about that. So, all right, we're going to get going. We're going to get going here. We are going to start off here with the grits because it's going to take a little bit of time, probably as much as 25 minutes to a half an hour, in order for these to cook properly. So, what I have is 2.5 cups of water. That's going to go in. And I'm going to put most, but not all of it quite yet, of 2.5 cups of half and half into that saucepan. I'm going to turn on the heat. It's medium for the moment. I'll be adjusting it down later on as it thickens. And I'm also going to be adding in approximately a teaspoon of salt. We'll let that get running for the moment. Some of you might be wondering why the disparity in between 1 cup of grits needing 5 cups of liquid. The truth of the matter is, this this is actually made, by the way, if you didn't know, from hominy. It is made in the same. It's made in the same way. It's put in a lye solution, so it puffs up. And so, if you've ever had hominy grits, or actually hominy, they used to call these hominy grits because it was simply the hominy that was then taken, dried, chopped up, and then sold on to people because it was very shelf stable. Anyway, so we'll give that just a couple of seconds. All right, I've got just a little bit of steam coming out of this liquid that we're going to be using to steep into our grits. I'm going to take it and I'm going to take a whisk. Pour them all in. Here's another thing with grits. They will clump up in a heartbeat if you let them. We do end up having to babysit this a bit. You'll see them also starting to thicken up. They'll start to bind. Babysit them with a little bit more of the cream. And also, right near the end, we'll be doing it with butter as well. That really, of course, I mean, you can't have grits without butter. I just, there's nothing to it. So here we are. And I won't let this go for more than 2 or 3 minutes without stirring and making sure all the stuff gets off the bottom. Make sure also to get down into the edges on the inside cracks. We want them nice and smooth, otherwise it defeats the purpose. So there we are. So through the magic of digital presence and media, we're going to jump forward in time a few minutes. We'll see what we have. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes in, and we've already gotten to a low simmer with a little bit of a boil. We don't want to take it any higher than that. This particular stove unit is like a dragon. It just throws off heat like crazy, and so I have to be very careful, and I'm seeing a little bit more bubbles than I want, so I'm taking it to dead low on this medium-sized burner. Some of you might be asking about my choice of grits. Those are white stone ground grits. If you come across yellow stone ground grits, use them. The color really does not matter whatsoever. And as a matter of fact, by the time that I end up putting the amount of butter I'm likely to put into this thing, they're going to be yellow anyway. I don't make this very often, which its exclusivity in terms of the number of times I make this throughout the year is also part of the fact that anytime you serve this, you better serve it with a side of Lipitor. This really isn't very good to you, but not really good for you. The fat content is probably staggering. I haven't added it up, but I'm not going to because I don't want it to ruin my day. But once in a while, the stuff is amazing. We're starting to get some body here, okay. I'm starting to see the stuff float to the top. So we're maybe a quarter to a third of the way in, and we're going to continue to babysit this. I can smell the corn. You can tell these are really the real thing. And I'm just starting to see the thickening that's starting to go off in this pot. So we'll keep it going. Obviously, a bunch of dairy products in here. We don't want to scald it. We don't want to burn it. Just like almost putting any sort of milk over top of the stove. So just be careful with that. All right, time travel phase again. Now that we've been into it between 10 and 15 minutes, you can see that we're thickening up pretty well. We still have about a cup of reserved half and half there. And looking at it, it looks great. So far, I'm going to take just a little bit of taste. Be careful. This stuff is just hot. It's on its merry way. I'm not going to need any additional salt in it, but it's not done yet. Kind of like if this were pasta, this would be a little bit too al dente. But as it's reached its full potential in terms of the volume that we have, I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to add in the rest of this, half and half. We're going to stir it in, and we're going to continue on our merry way. Now, having said that, normally what I would be doing is I would be using many of these other ingredients and getting started on the gravy for the shrimp. However, for our particular purposes here today, I wanted to make this separate. So if you wanted to make these grits but not make shrimp and grits, then everything's all on one side of the video, and then you can go to the other one if you want to make the shrimp topping. But these are going to be two separate recipes that I place on the website, so you can either make them separately or together, as is your wish. We're going to continue on for a couple more minutes, and then I'll get down to my next surprise ingredient, actually the first surprise ingredient that I need for this dish so far. Okay, now that we're about 22 minutes in, we are starting to get to the point where I can lift it and peaks just start to form and don't completely fall back into the pot. This is exactly where we want to be in order to place in the next ingredient. Yes, butter makes everything better. We're going to get this stirred in. It's also going to give it that nice velvety appearance. It's going to add a little bit more salt to it as well. So you don't want to oversalt this before you put the butter in. And now it's actually also time to reveal a little bit of a secret for this next one, and that is cheese grits. Yes, as soon as I finish wiping that off, something I didn't show you earlier, I'm going to be putting in about 3/4 cup of sharp cheddar cheese that I've grated. Try to avoid the pre-grated stuff. It always comes with some sort of starch or something on it, and that inhibits its melting ability. But now that we're where we are wanting to be in terms of cooking this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off that burner, and I'm going to use my smallest one right there at its lowest setting. I just want to keep the heat on. And I'm going to shuffle around a little bit. I'm going to use my diffuser here. Place it over top. Sorry about that lack of camera adeptness. I'm going to place it there, and I'm also going to cover it and keep checking on it for a period of time. But that cheddar, you can either add it in there now if you wanted to, if you were about to serve it. If you're going to be holding off for a few minutes, do that. Put it in, stir it in. Wonderful stuff right before it goes to the table. All right, now we're going to be going over to the shrimp in the gravy. Now we're back over to this side. I'm going to get started with the pancetta. Now, ordinarily, we'd probably put some fat in here, but let's face it, pancetta is, there's a lot of fat in there anyway, so we're going to use that to help us along with the shrimp that we're going to be putting in right afterwards. I've had this heating over medium heat and tossing it in. We're going to treat it kind of like bacon for the moment. Got a nice sizzle. As a matter of fact, you can use bacon if you want. No problems whatsoever. But you can see the amount of fat that it's also putting at the bottom of the pan. I chose this size because I've also got 1 pound of bacon, 1 pound of shrimp that I'm going to be putting in. And I don't want to overcrowd the pan because that's how you end up stewing your seafood instead of giving it a quick saute. We are not in it to make it crispy. You could if you wanted to, but we certainly want to render it safe. There we are. It's starting to settle down on itself. And now's the time that we're going to add our shrimp. The shrimp go in. We're maximizing contact with the bottom of the pan. We're going to add the salt. pepper. And about a teaspoon of your favorite Cajun seasoning. If you wish, you can add around a quarter teaspoon of cayenne pepper, if you so desire. It really only takes about 2 minutes to do these. You want to cook your shrimp, not turn them to rubber. For whatever reason, these were already curled in. Very often, what I would do to test the doneness of shrimp is to see how far they've curled. These are already curled up into almost into an O, which would indicate sometimes that they were overcooked, if you'll allow me the pun. But since they came that way, we're just going to have to ballpark it. Oh, you thought you were going to get away from me. Let's maximize our contact, as I said. With the bottom of the pan. Get over. There we are. So maybe another 30 to 60 seconds, and we're going to be as far into cooking the shrimp as we really want to go. We've got some really nice flavor developing at the bottom. Something I think that you're really going to enjoy sitting on top of those grits. Okay, I think we are there. I'm going to evacuate these to a bowl. We are by no means done with them, of course. Yes, I'm taking the pancetta along with the shrimp. Most of it, anyway. I don't want it to overcook. Ah! Okay, now that we have this in here, I'm going to toss in about a tablespoon additional of the butter. We do have to have some butter in here because we're going to use a little bit of that flour as a thickener. All right, that's ready. And now we're going to add in our green pepper, our onions. We'll be putting 4 or 5 ounces of the Have cherry tomatoes in there shortly, but not until we're nearing the end. I really appreciate the delicacy of tomatoes, and unless I want to stew them for a sauce, I don't want to kill them because I like the brightness and the acid that it adds. So we're just going to start getting these a little bit toward translucency on the onions. Now we're going to add approximately 3 cloves of minced garlic. We're going to be combining the shrimp and the pancetta back into here, you'll remember that I've already salted and peppered that, so I don't have to worry about this that much. We will adjust it right near the end. Okay. So now I'm going to add in those tomatoes. Just some really nice color if you just want to look at the aesthetics of it. And I'm going to deglaze with about a half a cup of white wine. We're going to let that reduce down. We are now down to the point where we've got about a quarter of a cup, I guess. So we've reduced a good bit. Now I am going to add in the rest of my butter. And my chicken stock. Let this get to a boil because we're going to dust in some of the flour. Using flour, you have to make sure that the liquid is boiling. Otherwise, it's not going to thicken. Oh, look, we've got bubbles. All right. I'm going to set that down. I want my whisk back. Try not to get it all clumped up. And use about 3/4 of it to start. Always hard to tell exactly how much you're going to need. Look at that. I think I nailed it, so 1.5 tablespoons. And now we're going to throw the shrimp and pancetta back in for final adjustment. Now that we have that in, oh yeah, that's fantastic. I'm actually going to put in just a little bit more and finish off actually this bottle of Cajun seasoning just to put in a little heat. And again, optional. The cayenne, totally optional. I'm going to just put in about 1/8 of a tablespoon, I think. Boy, that one shrimp is going to be a hot one. Oh dear, I've got a captive. Oh well. And there we are. I don't want to cook any longer. Let me put this in my bowl. That is a work of art. I wish I could say that I came up with it. Now that we're rounding everything off, my grits look fantastic. They're looser than mashed potatoes. We don't want them to be that thick. I'm going to put in about 3/4 cup. I've got the extra over here to use as both garnish and topping if we wish to use it. And of course, adding in the cheese as it melts, it's going to thin it on its own just slightly. Perfect. Now it's time to assemble these guys. So I'm going to put in a nice bed of our low country grits in there on both of these. This certainly isn't the difficult part. And I can't believe I can't suddenly find my spoon, but that's all right. Now we're going to top with the shrimp. Yeah, 2 more, why not? If you wish to cover them with a light dusting of, I don't know, scallions or parsley flakes, that's also perfectly acceptable, or more of the cheese. I think I'm just going to do the cheese simply because I've got it here. And this, my friends, is low country shrimp and grits. I want to thank you for joining us once again here on Eating Plebian, and I really hope this is something that, even though it has a little bit more of the preparation involved, it's actually very simple in terms of the components, and something that I hope you give it a try. This is one of my absolute favorite dishes to create, and I hope maybe it'll be yours too. Thanks for joining with us. Thanks also for visiting Eating Plebian. That's the name.